This conference will now be recorded.
You make a slide, don't come out. All right. All right. Now this could go on all day. Yes. All right. We'll do tour reports later. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good to have you here. I'm going to get started because I have added a lot of material to this class since the first couple times I've taught it. I've gotten clarification on a couple important points, and EXP has been clarifying their position, which is not necessarily the same as anybody else in the world. And so I'm going to walk you through very specifically what you need to know about the settlement. Just a quick background, and I know most of y'all are aware of this already, but I'm going to cover it because we're being recorded, and there may be plenty of people watching this later who don't know the background. But all of this stuff started when a group of sellers sued the National Association of Realtors and a whole bunch of other associations and some MLSs and some big real estate companies, alleging that we all conspired to, quote, raise, fix, maintain, or stabilize real estate commissions in violation of the Sherman Act. In other words, any individual company has the right to set their own rates, but here we are as individual companies and associations collaborating and conspiring to fix real estate commissions. A jury in Kansas City decided in their favor. And what does that tell you? You never want your fate to be decided by a general sampling of the population, right? Because clearly this was a bunch of ignorant people who had no understanding of how our industry operates. But that's what you get. That's what you get. And the plaintiffs knew that. On March 15th, a settlement was reached between the parties requiring NAR to pay $418 million over a 4-year period. By the time the other associations pay up and the big companies, this is going to be a $1 billion settlement. Robin, don't you think you and I wish we thought about this first? We could have sued ourselves. That settlement also included many required changes to realtor practices. In other words, we can't be doing some of the things that we did before, which led to this jury verdict. I've simplified these down to two biggies. Agents must have a buyer representation agreement in place prior to showing a property, unless the property is listed by your broker. And then you're already authorized by your broker. You are essentially an agent of the seller and you can show it. But if you're showing anybody else's listing, you must have a representation agreement in place, and that representation agreement must include an offer of compensation. What is the buyer going to pay you? You know, when I say buyer, you can also insert tenant because the rules are exactly the same for both. What are they going to pay you for your services? The agent then is not allowed to be paid more than the compensation specified in the agreement. So you might say, well, I'll work for 2%, and the seller offers 3%. Guess how much you're getting paid? 2. Or the builder's offering a bonus. You don't get the bonus. Now, there is a little caveat. You can amend the agreement, but now you need your buyer's cooperation, and not all buyers are cooperative. You know, because you're doing this in the midst of negotiations, and they're like, well, if they end up paying you more, I'm not going to get as good of a deal. And they'll feel that way even if it's a builder offering a bonus. They'll feel like that money's coming out of their pocket. So you really need to think carefully about this. And I really didn't plan to start giving advice this early, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of advice. It's possible to have multiple buyer agreements with your buyers. You could sign several representation agreements. You could have one for resale and one for new home construction. Yeah, or you could have one for a particular geographic area, or one for a particular property type, one for a certain price range, and you could adjust the compensation accordingly in each of those individual agreements. Similarly, buyers can have multiple agents. So let this sink in. They could have an agreement with Kevin, for example, to show them properties in the Woodlands. They could have an agreement with someone else to show them properties in Conroe or League City or Pearland or wherever, as long as these representation agreements don't overlap. And they all specify time and geography at a minimum, but you can also add in, property type or new construction or anything like that that would be helpful. The MLS, this is the second big change, is not permitted to advertise offers of compensation to the buyer's broker or, and I added this statement this morning, or facilitate communication of such offers in any way. Now, it's really impossible for the MLS to do that because as of August 17th, there will be no way for a listing broker to even inform HAR of what the offer of compensation is. So it's going to be impossible for them to share.
Your offer, how to, what's that called, information.
What's the answer, Miriam? No. No, 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 no.
But I can wear a t-shirt that says 3%, on my website, I pay 3%, but not.
When you come to your open house, you can have something there for buyer's agents.
So you can advertise it anywhere, but on the MLS or on any website connected via an IDX to the MLS. Now, somebody shared with me a video put out by KV Core where they were showing how you could legitimately and compliantly put your offer of compensation on your KV Core website. I haven't watched the video yet, and I haven't seen any official statement from EXP about that. It concerns me because it's an IDX linked site. So I would say don't do that unless you watch the video and are convinced that it's legit.
Yeah, and that gets us into the EXP thing.
Yes, yes, it absolutely does. So put it on your t-shirt. Yes, answer the calls when you get from buyers, brokers, tell them what you're offering. You can put it on a sign in the yard. And it could be a specific offer of compensation. We pay 3% to a buyer's broker, or we pay $6,000, or we offer buyer broker compensation. That's probably best. Just a generic expression of willingness to compensate. If you do something like that, I wouldn't say the word we, I would say seller. Seller offering buyer broker compensation. And the reason I don't say we is that could imply it's EXP Realty.
Right.
And EXP is not offering buyer broker compensation. Let that sink in. That's a rock your world kind of statement. And that didn't sink into me until just recently when I was watching an interview with our CEO and our VP of brokerage operations. And I'm like, did I hear that right? And I've since clarified it.
And we so to speak, we pissed off half the realty world when the word first came out, and there was quite a storm.
Yeah.
So that tells you it's worth leaning in and trying to understand some of the storms because they don't understand it, that we don't understand it the same way.
So our leadership team at EXP is on a campaign to bring the industry over to our understanding. And I was going to talk about this a little later, but I'll go ahead and just address it now since we put it on the table. Our company's position is that commission sharing is what triggered this lawsuit to begin with. And so for us to continue sharing commissions invites additional lawsuits. There is nothing in the settlement to prevent anybody else from suing us again for any reason. And now we've got a big target sign on us. I mean, the real estate industry. So EXP is trying to show leadership and be proactive and say, if we didn't know this last one was going to get us, right? That was a blind spot, because particularly in Texas, we weren't doing anything wrong. It was other states that had other laws that perhaps weren't as disclosure oriented as Texas is that got us in trouble. But EXP is looking down the road and saying, well, now that we know we're a target, where are we exposed? Well, we're still doing the basic core practice that got us in trouble in the first place if we commission share. So that's why EXP has said no, and they're trying to bring the rest of the industry their way.
So can you explain how we're gonna do that?
Yes, it's not the broker who's sharing a commission, it's the seller who's compensating the buyer's broker. Think of it in the past.
In our current listings, if you have a listing now that says X%, that needs to change and say, our new listing commission is X, 2.5%, 3%, 4%, whatever it is. And so that amendment needs to come in place on any listings that we have right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about that, and there's actually forms in place for that to amend current representation agreements for buyers and for sellers. And I'm going to show you exactly, Robin, how this is reflected on a new listing agreement. In the past, we would say something like listing broker commission is 6%. And then later on in the document, we would say that if a buyer's broker brings us a client, we will share, say, 3% with them. That's commission sharing. Now, all that we're going to be able to say is, this is what the listing broker compensation is. Let's just say, for example, 3%. Well, what are we going to pay the buyer's broker? That's not in the listing agreement, because EXP is not. We're going to take our commission. I said a bad word. We're not supposed to say commission anymore. It is compensation. Why? I don't know. Why is it not the master bedroom? Why is it the primary bedroom? Okay? All of this is beyond our pay grade. But it's compensation. And we do not compensate anybody other than our own agents. Okay? All right. There are new contract forms which have been created to reflect and facilitate these changes. And I'm going to go through those in just a moment. But we've been joined by Tom and Javier. Did y'all want to say anything, right?
Up there? Yeah.
Well, we have a worldwide listening audience live. So you would want to speak from here.
That would make sense.
Okay.
But stand in front of the laptop. You gotta look at the laptop like that.
So there's thousands.
Could be since I last checked.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Frank is allowing us the opportunity, Javier and Rodriguez and myself, Tom Schmidt, to present Jackson Henry Mortgage to you. And that's what we want to do. What's the timeline, Frank? 3 minutes, 5 minutes? Okay. So our purpose of being here and presenting to you is because we're trying to demonstrate to you who we are. We want you to know us personally. We want you to get to know us. We certainly want to get to know you, because this business is all about relationships. And we want to develop those relationships in hopefulness that we can earn your business. Javier has said to me several times in the last 3 weeks that the word earn is so important, and it is, because we have to earn your business if we want your business. So how do we do that? We want to get to know you personally, however that is. Coffee, lunch, breakfast, meeting with you one-on-one, events that we are now planning together, which Javier will mention here in a minute with UWM. But we want to get to know you, and then we want to let you know of our what we think separates us from our competition, our proposition value. So that is, there's many ingredients of that. Probably the most important to you in getting buyers to a closing table is the products that are available for your use. And I can get into all of them specifically with you, but we have so many different products for self-employed. We're closing a lot of loans right now for self-employed borrowers where we're approving them off a non-audited P&L as an example. So the old products that went away are coming back because of competition. Stated income. So I'm just using this as an example. When a self-employed borrower makes $200,000 and they demonstrate on their tax return to reduce their tax liability that they're earning $12,000 a year, they can't buy a home usually based on a $12,000 income. So we say, hey, we'll put them on this product here. It typically requires 20% down, but based on their P&L as an example, we give them an approval and they close on a house, the buyer's happy, the realtors are happy, the sellers, everyone's happy in that transition, and that's our game, what we're trying to accomplish here. Provide you with value, provide you with products, provide you with relationships. I always say, you know, when you enter into a business relationship with me by way of mortgages, I'm giving you myself. I'm giving you ethics and honesty and all of those things, morals and returning phone calls and all those things that you experience in this industry that are always not that same. Communication is always the biggest disappointment from borrowers and realtors if that takes place. So we're here to change all that. We want you to believe it and we want you to experience it. Doesn't matter what I say, if we don't deliver it and you don't feel it, none of this makes sense. So anyways, Tom Schmidt, Jackson Henry Mortgage. I'm going to let Javier speak for a minute here, and you might bring up UWM.
Sure. I'm not sure if Tom mentioned it, but we're the new Jackson Henry Mortgage owners at this point. We're partners. We're here to bring you Jackson Henry Mortgage 2.0. Tom is talking about all the products that we have available. There's really not a reason why your buyers should only focus on qualifying for just traditional mortgages. There's also non-traditional alternative loans that we can help you with. There's all types of products that we can help you with, but it's a matter of sitting down with you and help you understand those, and then help the buyer understand those as well. On the other side, what I bring to the table is most of my business is Spanish-speaking business. So if you have any Spanish-speaker buyers that need that assistance, that need that connection, you are the rock star in this picture. So all you got to do is let the buyer talk to us, and we'll walk them through the process. Okay. As far as what he was mentioning, UWM. UWM is one of the major companies out there that right now is the #1 lender overall, and they're the ones that support most of our loans. We have a bunch of lenders for non-traditional options, but for those that qualify for traditional loans, we can definitely get them to close a loan in 10, 15, 20 days. So we really, in the near future, we really want to keep taking realtors to UWM so they can learn the capacity of loans we can take with that lender. They have a warehouse where they have about 9,000 employees that back up all of our work, and that helps out a lot. So,
Yeah, and I want to add in that those of us that can come along, we're going to pay for the flights, the hotels, breakfast, and lunch while you're there. So it's going to be a really cool way for us to get to know each other, for you to get to know what Javier just said, the underwriters, and it's an impressive journey that we want you to be involved with. Also, I want to say, we actually close loans with this underwriter, UWM, in 7 days, that quickly. And for those loans, they have to be good, clean, high credit score, documented assets in a bank, a good, what we call a good, clean loan, but 7 days. So when you have those situations where, hey, Javier, Tom, Frank, we need to close this loan now, we can literally close a good, clean loan that quickly. We can't if the credit score is 520 and there's collections and this and that. But what we call a clean loan, if you need a loan closed quickly, we get clear to closes on 1 day. So that means we submit the loan on a Monday and it's clear to close Monday at 4 o'clock. That's amazing, and most of our competition cannot do that. So we're trying to bring all this to you.
Thank you, Frank. And,
I like to talk.
These guys have enthusiasm, if you haven't figured that out. Yeah, good to have you guys here. Is Shannon going to join us later? Is she going to be here?
Oh, no, but I told her to present her name. She was unable to make it, but Shannon Stilinski is part of our group, a major important part of our group, the most important part of our group probably, and we're going to have her involved in these activities that we're doing. You'll get to know her better.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. You've probably heard, if you didn't hear before in my announcement, they bought most of the company from me. I maintained a little bit of a residual that I hope to give to my grandchildren someday if it turns into something. But those are the guys, the majority owners, and running the company now. All right, let's get into the forms. These are the changes that have been made to the forms to reflect the changes required by the NAR settlement. These are all Texas Realtor forms, Texas Association of Realtors. You might say, well, where's all the new TREC forms? But remember, TREC only creates forms for buyers and sellers to use with each other. The 1-to-4 family contract, for example, and the related addendums to that. If you're talking about a relationship between an agent and a buyer, or an agent and a seller, that's something that our Realtor Association develops for us. So that's why it's primarily TAR producing these TXR forms related to the settlement. Now, TREC is getting involved just a little bit. The Broker Lawyer Committee has recommended some changes to the 1-to-4, and those have been floated out there. They're available now. They are minimal. There's really not much to them. And if all goes as planned, those new forms will be available in November. But what you really need to be focused on are the TXR forms, the representation forms. If you are currently in a listing, you are the listing agent, and that home is not under contract, and you don't get it under contract by the 17th of August, you need to do one of two things. Put them under a new listing agreement, the revised listing agreement that I'll show you in a moment, or use this amendment, the TXR 2701, to update the current listing agreement. Now, if it goes pending prior to the 17th, I've got one scheduled to close on the 23rd, no big deal, because that agreement's already been made. But you'll use this form, TXR 2701, for an active listing that is not on the new form on August 17th. All right, the actual listing agreement, the TXR 1101, the primary changes have to do with compensation, because that's the whole point of the lawsuit. So if you go to paragraph 5, which deals with broker compensation, you're going to see a statement that shows up in big bold letters that you're probably going to memorize because it's being plastered everywhere in our industry right now. Broker compensation, or the sharing of compensation between brokers, is not set by law, nor fixed, controlled, recommended, or suggested by the Association of Realtors, MLS, or any listing service. Broker compensation is fully negotiable. Brokers independently determine their fees. In other words, there's no price fixing, collaboration, violation of the Sherman Act. Okay? Now, go to 5A, broker's fee, in parenthesis, with compensation to other broker. Other broker means the buyer's broker. And then you specify what the total compensation is going to be in A1, and then in A2, from that, how much are you going to offer to the buyer's broker? And then it says, if the other broker is a sub-agent, what are you going to compensate them? We've never compensated sub-agents. And in the future, August 17th, future's coming, there will be no sub-agents. Right? Because if you're going to show a home, you must represent that buyer. So now, cross 5A out of your mind. You, as an EXP agent, will never use it, right? We are going to be using 5B, broker's fee, parenthesis, without compensation for other broker. This is what we are going to charge for ourselves. When earned and payable, seller will pay broker, insert amount to be paid. A is a percentage of the sale price. Let's just use, for example, 10%. Wouldn't that be nice? Or a flat dollar amount. Now you'll see there's also a B, which is just open-ended. What would you put in B? You could put a bonus, but yeah, you could do something like that. You're going to earn a bonus if you do what? Sell by a certain date or something? Oh, we'll hold that thought. We'll come back to that. Well, no, this is a listing agreement. Listing agreement. So I gave you an answer on the slide. You can check both A and B. Say you're going to do a 3% listing commission, but then B, what if there is an unrepresented buyer? Do you work harder? Sometimes it's easier with an unrepresented buyer, but you're definitely going to assume more responsibilities. So you could say here 1% additional compensation, bonus compensation, if the buyer is unrepresented. Okay, we've never had that plain opportunity before, so that's kind of fun. But that's what B is for. Some unique situation that you want to memorialize. Okay?
So not intermediary then.
No, unrepresented is not intermediary. You can still do intermediary. Yes, that has not been taken away. Now, if your seller is willing to offer compensation directly, right? EXP is not going to pay them, but the seller at closing from their proceeds can pay the buyer's broker. We need permission to communicate that to the buying public and to other realtors. And so if you skip all the way down, this is paragraph 5. If you go to paragraph 11, it says this in 11F. Seller check does or does not authorize broker to share with other brokers and prospective buyers that seller will consider contributing an amount towards buyer expenses, such as buyer's broker's fees or other closing costs. Seller is not obligated to pay any specific amount and has sole discretion to negotiate payment of buyer's expenses with the buyer under the sales contract. I want you to think of this like a refrigerator conveys with the home in the listing description. Does it convey with the home?
Not until it's added in the contract.
That's exactly right. That's considered an offer. But if it's not an accepted offer, then it doesn't actually convey. Similarly, when a seller says, Mr. Listing Agent, Miss Listing Broker, you can inform people that I'm willing to pay 3% buyer commission, or I'm willing to pay $10,000, or I'm open to considering an offer. They're not obligated by any of that. Not obligated. So you want to be really careful in communicating, like about the refrigerator, right? It's not a done deal until both parties sign the 1-to-4 memorializing the exact agreement. And actually, it's not the 1-to-4. In regard to refrigerator, it could be the 1-to-4 or the non-realty. But in regard to compensation, there's another form for that. TXR 1412, if your seller checks does authorize in paragraph 11, then you want to use this form TXR 1412, which essentially states that the seller has authorized you as the listing broker to communicate special details about the offer of compensation. And it could be stuff very vague, seller motivated. It could be something like that, because sometimes sellers don't want you saying that because that's going to invite lowball offers. But if they have very specific language that they want you to use to market the property, they can put that here. They could also put in here a specific offer of compensation. But again, it is not binding. They're simply authorizing you to communicate this to the public, just like refrigerator conveys. Okay? But they're not obligated by it. And I'm going to see who's got good eyes. Who could actually read that first paragraph? Let me give it a shot. Seller authorizes broker to disclose and advertise the following information concerning the property to prospective buyers, other brokers, and on MLS services. For example, insert information regarding amounts seller would consider. So these are specific amounts, but they're not binding. Amounts seller would consider contributing towards buyer's expenses. Seller's reasons for placing the property on the market, any conditions of sale, or phrases such as terms are negotiable or bring all offers.
That could put on MLS, if that's something.
Yes, you can. You can't do an offer of compensation, but you could say bring all offers. Yes, you could say that. All right. Okay. So if the seller is willing to consider compensation, you must use TXR 1412. Okay? You don't have to write anything else in there, but use this form.
And then if you're doing an amendment listing.
Yes.
Listings.
If you're going to do an amendment to an active listing, well, this is the amendment form right here, but you could reference the TXR 1412 in the amendment and make it part of the listing agreement. Did I lose you?
Yeah.
So you have an active listing under the old listing agreement, not pending on August 17th. You need to amend it or replace it. If you amend it, this is the form that you use, and it mirrors the compensation language of the new agreement. But look at paragraph F. This is kind of your special provisions. Not quite, but paragraph blank are changed as follows. Do you know the paragraph where you list the other documents that are part of the contract? You could reference that paragraph number and then write in TXR 1412, part of contract. Okay? That's how you would do that. All right, TXR 1417. This is a representation disclosure that you give to somebody you're not representing. We've not had a form like this before. I have recommended in the past, let's say you're dealing with an unrepresented buyer. You give them the IABS form, because we're required to do that. But it describes the various types of relationships an agent can have with a consumer, but it doesn't say which you actually have with that consumer. And I would say, well, just write it in the margin. You know, agent represents seller only. For an unrepresented, you just write that in. That's better than nothing. Well, now we actually have a form for it. You don't have to write in the margins any longer. You put the broker firm name, broker associate's name, then you identify who you are representing. You're representing the seller, you're representing the buyer. Under what scenario could you represent the buyer and you have an unrepresented seller? A FSBO. A FSBO, for sale by owner, right? Unrepresented seller, but you represent the buyer. So you disclose that there, and then look at this big bold statement. The undersigned persons acknowledge there is no agency relationship with broker as of the date of this disclosure. So just use this anytime that you'd be triggered to provide an IABS, which is first substantive real estate conversation with somebody that you do not represent. Okay? All right, let's look at TXR 1501, the long form. This is the revised buyer-tenant representation agreement. And again, all it's dealing with here is compensation. When earned and payable, client will pay broker. You can put in a percentage, you can put in a flat amount on a purchase, and then what you're going to earn on a lease. Now look at the very next paragraph. This is not new language, but apparently it's new information to a lot of agents. I had this discussion with an agent this morning who did not know this language has always been in the buyer representation agreement. Sources of compensation. Broker will seek to obtain payment of the fees specified in paragraph 7A, first from the seller or the landlord, as the case may be, or their agents. If such persons refuse or fail to pay broker the amount specified, client will pay broker the amount specified less any amounts broker receives from other persons. So if we put up in 7A that I'm going to make, let's say it's a lease and I'm getting 50% of 1 month's rent. 50% of 1 month's rent on this lease would be $1,200. But the landlord only offered $800. How much is my tenant going to pay me? $400. They're going to make up the difference. It'll be offset. And I had this exact situation just a couple weeks ago where I didn't check the offer of compensation, even though it was in the MLS. I was expecting a half month's rent, and I got $800. It was short about $475. I just sent my client an email, and I'm telling her who's to write checks to and how much each check is to be for, and I identified $475 to EXP for tenant representation. She never questioned it. She wrote the check. Right? She was obligated to do that. But my point is, good morning, welcome. She did not push back on it. Okay? So it made me happy. Good client. Long form. Now this is stuff that I could be that agent now. I don't know if this was in the previous form. It was. It was new to me. I guess I never paid attention to it before. That's what I mean. I am that agent now. Okay, I'm pointing the finger at me. But look at that. I love this. Additional compensation. In addition to broker's fees specified in 7A, you can get additional compensation. Construction, if client uses broker services to procure or negotiate the construction or improvements to property that the client owns or will acquire. So let's say they're going to buy a property and then they're going to install a $200,000 pool in the backyard, and you're the one that referred the pool builder, and the pool builder wants to pay you a fee. This just acknowledges that you are welcome to receive that, in addition to your compensation provided by the seller or the buyer. And then similarly, service providers, if you're getting a little spiff from the utilities concierge or the home warranty company, this is acknowledging that that is okay, and it's in addition to your other compensation. Okay? All right, let's keep going. There's also a buyer rep short form. And in this case, this is representation. Let's not misunderstand this. Right? You are their legal representative in this transaction. However, kind of like intermediary, this short form reduces your obligations to that buyer. And in this case, if you'll look at paragraph 5, it's got full services as one option. Might as well use the long form. So why does this exist? It's for the next option, which says showing services. And then it specifically says that the other paragraphs on this form don't apply, which talks to the full services you're going to provide about finding and negotiating and managing that transaction. All you're doing here is opening doors. That's it. You're still legally representing that buyer, but now the buyers, it's going to be up to them to write an offer, negotiate the deal, get the thing to closing. Because you're only being paid $50 a door for showing, or a flat fee of $1,000, whatever it is, whatever you negotiate. Okay?
And how is EXP looking at that?
That is the question I don't have an answer to. And I was on the phone with the managing brokers today, getting all my questions answered, and I did not get that one answered. You asked that question on Monday, didn't you? I think that means you're a troublemaker, Robin. You keep asking these hard questions. I will go back and watch my video and be reminded. No, we don't. That's right. We got bills to pay. That's right. What's that?
Long form versus short form. That obviously, if it's a normal agreement, better use the long form.
Yes.
But if for some reason this buyer is saying, no, I just want you to open doors for me, and the requirement is we can't cross the threshold,
Yep.
or even give them a video tour of a home until we have
Right.
an agreement, then we have this one. If you're using this, you're saying we're only going to be using paragraph B, showing services only, and we're going to put some sort of a presumably reduced
Yes.
$1,000 flat fee.
And you specify it right there. Yeah, and it can be per showing or flat fee, yes. Yeah, I hope to not have occasion to use this form myself. I don't want to be a door opener. That's a hard way to make a living. All right, TXR 1505, amendment to buyer-tenant rep agreement. So if you have, again, like a listing agreement, if you have a representation with a buyer in place under the old form on August 17th, you can put them on the new form, or you can use this amendment to update the compensation section.
And that goes with new construction if you're representing the buyer.
Yeah, so new construction as a buyer rep is a gray area. It's hard to get clear answers. In fact, I found one area where EXP said, this is a gray area. Okay, so, but the advice is, best practice is, treat your new construction buyer like any other buyer. Any other buyer, go ahead and I would get the long form buyer rep agreement in place. Make sure you sign the card on the first showing at the builder's model and represent them as you do now. All right, TXR 2406. This is a new form, and it's very important. It's going to become an essential feature of your real estate practice. The addendum regarding brokers' fees. In the past, title companies could look at that little notice at the very bottom of the last page of the 1-to-4 contract, where it informed about what compensation the buyer's broker will be receiving. They could also go to the MLS. That's not a binding offer, but it's information that could be helpful to them. Going forward, title companies are probably going to love this, because for the first time, they're going to have a form signed by the parties to the transaction that specifies exactly who is being paid and how much is being paid. And this is that form. And you'll see that it is signed by both buyer and seller, and it just outlines who's being paid, how much, and where the money's coming from. Okay? And if you're a buyer broker, it's either going to come from, if you're a buyer broker, what are the three options? Where could that money come from? Seller. Buyer, right? What's the third option? The listing broker, right? The listing broker can offer compensation to the buyer's broker. Well, that's why I said, no. You are the buyer's broker in this scenario. You are the buyer's broker. Where can you be compensated? You can be compensated from your buyer, from the seller, or from the listing broker. What we can't do is when we're on the other side of the transaction, as the listing broker, we can't offer compensation to the buyer broker. But we can receive compensation from the listing broker.
Unless they're listing brokers with DXP.
Correct, yes. That's correct. Then they could compensate us via a seller compensation or a seller concession. Yes, either one of those is possible.
If I'm a buyer's agent, I can receive my compensation from my buyer, from the seller, or from the seller's broker. Correct.
Those are the three options.
That does not make sense to me.
Well, and I asked about it, and what EXP said is, we don't want our agents not being paid. When another broker is offering compensation, we want you to be able to get that money. Now, to mitigate our risk, we're not going to be sharing commissions, but that other buyer's broker can be paid directly by the seller. And think of it this way. If we were normally going to do a $300,000 listing, it made sense, the light went on? We're taking a $300,000 listing, 6% listing fee, offering 3% to the buyer's broker. Well, if we're now listing post August 17, we could list that thing for $291, earn a 3% listing broker commission, and the seller is kept whole, even at that reduced price, because now they're not paying 3% to the buyer's broker. Now, if the buyer's broker could negotiate the deal, well, let's make it $300,000 and offer a $9,000 seller concession or direct seller compensation to cover my fee. Everybody's whole. The buyer is whole, the seller is whole, the agent is whole, nobody's been disadvantaged. You just have to know how the numbers are going to work. Got to work the numbers. Okay?
And another one, the flip side of that is, say the price is 300 and the seller doesn't want to pay anything. You tell your buyer, look, let's move the sales price up by 2%.
Yes.
To 302, and then the numbers.
You took a $300,000 up 2% and got to 302?
No, sorry.
No, I'm usually the one with the math mistakes, so I'm picking on you. I'm not alone. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what this tells me is that
Lower appraisers.
I'm old school, but you used to have on your laptop, you had a little table. You had a little table that you would look at and do and I see myself create a table.
So let me tell you what's going to be really important. It's going to be more important than ever before as an agent. And that's going to be able to determine the actual market value of that home.
That's right. So your CMA has to be.
That's right.
On point.
It does. Whether you're representing the buyer or the seller, now that we have to factor in this compensation as a separate item, we really need to be able to get to market value and see whether that's driving this contract price over market, which creates a potential appraisal issue, or whether it simply gets it to market value and we shouldn't have an issue and we can defend it to an appraiser. So that's going to be a key.
So we need to complete this 2402 on all transactions, and so we got a buyer's offer from a buyer, and then we say, okay, we also need to complete this to spell out exactly. who's
Yes.
doing what.
Yes.
Like a CDA.
We will be doing a 2406 on every transaction. Every transaction, whether we're on the buy side or the sell side, because we need to be able to inform the title company of who's paying what when and to whom. All right, the 2402. I'm going to amend my language a little bit here. This is called the compensation agreement between brokers. And I state here it's used on every buyer transaction to memorialize the compensation agreement between listing and buying brokers. If you have a 2406, then you're not going to need the 2402. Even though, the reason I wrote it this way is the brokers actually sign this form and only the buyers and the sellers sign the 2406. But the 2406 is now part of the contract. It's an addendum signed by buyer and seller, and so it is legally enforceable, and the title company can pay off of it. Okay, so
That can be listed in the little things for the addendums.
I would presume it's already there in the new TXR 11. No, that's the listing agreement. In the new 1-4. Well, wait a minute. Trek has not updated their forms yet. I will bet you a nickel. Yeah, well, Trek has not issued any new forms yet. They've put some out there for review. The broker lawyer committee has made recommendations. They will start circulating here soon. And if all goes as planned, they'll be promulgated in November. But I'll bet you this will be one of the changes. This will be listed as a standard form in additional documents. All right. Again, you're probably not going to need 2402 if you're using 2406. All right. A referral agreement between brokers. Everybody is asking about how referrals are impacted by the settlement. They're not impacted at all. Nothing changes because the referral agreement is between brokers solely and does not involve compensation from a buyer or seller. However, they have updated the agreement. I'm just bringing it to your attention. In first of all, paragraph 3, they've been very clear about start and end point, and then whether it applies to one transaction or multiple transactions during the term. Okay. Sometimes people will refer a seller, and then that seller sells, and then they buy another house. And the referring agent wants a commission on both transactions, and the receiving agent says, no, it was just on the sell side. So this helps to clarify, is it one transaction only or multiple? Okay. Let's see. I'm going to skip those takeaways. FAQs. Oh, I'm going to give you the frequently asked questions and then give you some answers. This is bonus material that you've not seen before, but I thought this would be helpful. When do these changes take place altogether now?
August 17th.
August 17th, that's when they're binding. Can we create a website where we consolidate offers of compensation? Not related to the MLS, no IDX feed. Can we go put out there HoustonOffersOfCompensation.com? I've been recommending that somebody do that and make their fortune. You've got a 15-minute window in which to do this before everybody else does. But now I'm saying don't. I was acting on the settlement itself, which did not address non-MLS websites. But the Department of Justice has just weighed in. And their interpretation of the settlement is that there can be no consolidation of offers of compensation anywhere. So I can't say, hey, Coldwell Banker agent, Remax agent, let's all put our offers here and then we'll have one website to go to. DOJ is saying no. I really thought somebody was going to get rich on that. I was recommending, I've thought about it myself, but I'm in the simplify mode, not expansion mode. So, all right, when do you need a buyer rep agreement? Because we already said to show property you need it. But what other circumstances? You do not need it when just sending properties out via email. You don't need it when talking to prospects at an open house. Not when conducting an initial buyer consultation, but yes, when showing property and acting as an agent, doing what agents do. What do agents do? They find, negotiate, and manage, right? I covered that in my buyer class on Monday, didn't I? Find, negotiate, and manage. When you're doing those things, you better have a buyer rep agreement.
I can make a video tour of this place and say, here's a cool property that might be coming on the market.
Yep.
Yada, yada. But if I say, Kevin, I know you want to see this place, you can't come out, I'm going to give you my personal video tour, or we live, even though you're not physically here with me, I can't cross the threshold showing you the property via Zoom or in person unless I've got this agreement.
So let me break that down for you. So you post a video promoting a property. There's no obligation to pay for anything. Somebody responds to the video and says, hey, what price is it being offered at? And is that market value? What's triggered now? IABS. That's right. First substantive conversation. Then they say, I like your numbers. Can you show it to me? Now we need a buyer rep agreement. Okay? Now we need a brawl. I didn't say it. She did. Okay. All right. So can a buyer rep agreement be changed if a seller is offering more compensation than what is in the agreement?
Not just yes, but.
Heck yes. Now, let me
have that right here.
Boom. Yes, you can. And by the way, there's different ways to do it. You can take the original agreement, mark it out, make the changes, initial them. That's perfectly fine. You can change the agreement with an amendment. You can also have a new agreement. You can have multiple agreements as long as they don't overlap each other. So there's a lot of different ways to handle that. Now, just in full disclosure, I will share with you a comment I read in EXP documentation. They don't think increasing your compensation in response to a seller offer is a, quote, best practice. But they are allowing us to do that, right? They don't want us losing out on money. That's good. We want our broker helping us to make money. But I got the feeling they're just a little uncomfortable from a legal exposure perspective to that practice. But do it. If there's money being offered, get it. That's our answer right now. What if a buyer refuses to sign a buyer representation agreement? You can't. The way I say it is, it's just like a listing agreement. If somebody refuses to sign a listing agreement, are you going to list their property? You're going to take pictures and put it on the MLS? No. Yes. Well, here's the deal. I think people are going to have buyer rep agreements because, first of all, and I'm going to address this in just a moment, the MLS can enforce it. They can ask to see the buyer rep agreement. I can't imagine any brokerage that's going to pay compensation to an agent on a buyer deal without seeing the buyer rep agreement and the offer of compensation that was agreed upon in it, because you talk about putting a target on yourself for litigation. So I think we will be united, if not voluntarily, then by force. Yeah. All right. Can buyers sign multiple representation agreements with multiple agents? Yes, they can. Yeah. Or multiple agreements with the same agent. Yes, you can. If a seller does not offer compensation or concessions, or does express a willingness, or I think doesn't. So the seller doesn't say, I'm not offering compensation, I'm not offering concessions, and I'm not willing to talk about it. Okay? Can we still request compensation or concessions in an offer? That's right. It's still negotiable, right? It's just like the seller didn't offer the refrigerator. Can we ask for it? We sure can. Okay? Yes. Just like anything else, there's no harm in asking. Okay? Who will enforce the requirement to have a representation agreement? The broker, specifically the MLS. They will have the right to ask for it. And I watched a video on this. This was from an experienced agent who's obviously been around. They're like, hey, the other agents are going to rat you out if you don't. Right? They're gonna report you. So do it. There's going to be lots of people enforcing it. Will sellers be selecting officers based on buyer broker compensation? What do you think? Yeah, it'll be a factor. If so, isn't that detrimental to our buyers? And the point of that question was, well then, or is it a violation of fiduciary to ask for a 4% buyer representation commission when others are going to be asking 2%, and it's going to disadvantage my client? Well, the answer is, it's not just the compensation that's going to decide the seller's choice of multiple offers. It's going to be the whole package. Yep, I'm paying this agent more than I would pay that agent, but that agent also wants the chandelier. They're asking for that, and their buyer's asking for the chandelier that my grandma brought over from Italy, right, when I was 4 years old. They're going to look at the entire package, the price, the terms. And so don't get hung up on that issue. You will have buyers who get hung up on that issue, and you need to be able to communicate with them. My compensation is just one of many parts of this offer. And I can assure you, as we've already talked about, I'm going to bring value in excess of my fee. All the things that I'm going to do with my negotiation skills and my negotiation strategy and my negotiation reputation, I'm going to earn that fee in excess of what I'm charging you. Can offers of compensation be put in private agent remarks in the MLS? No. You want to get in trouble, there's going to be a big HAR foot stomp on you, just like that.
Yeah, there is hard is communication, that you will be in violation and
Yes.
fine immediately.
Yes. There will be a field for seller concessions, but offers of compensation cannot be placed anywhere in the MLS. What about existing listings? Do we need to reduce the listing broker comp if it includes an offer of compensation to a buyer broker? This is August 17th. The agreement must be amended, right? Because EXP is not offering buyer broker compensation. So the answer is yes. The new agreement must identify the listing broker comp separately from any offer of concessions or buyer broker compensation paid directly by the seller. And by the way, there's nowhere in the actual listing agreement for the seller to give an offer of compensation, but they could on that TXR 1412 offer the refrigerator. They could say we're paying 3% to a buyer broker, but it's not mandatory. It's not binding. It's just think of the refrigerator. Okay, it's still, the deal still has to be negotiated. There's no sharing of commissions. So if you're on an agreement that talks about commission sharing, it's got to go away. Why is EXP not offering buyer broker compensation? I think I've already covered this, so we'll skip over that. How are pending contracts which close after August 17th impacted by these changes? They're not impacted by these changes. If you had a listing or you're representing a buyer, it's pending on August 16th, then you just go on as normal and close it as normal. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So that's the end of my FAQ. I wanted to share a quote that I picked up from Leo Perea, the CEO of EXP Realty, and I wish I had said this first. There will be a messy middle until we get to a new normal. And what that means is there's going to be more changes. We're all going to figure this out. And there will be some breakthroughs in thought that simplify this. And then there will be additional lawsuits that further complicate it. So we just got to be comfortable with the chaos for a while. Do the best you can to learn these forms, learn how to use them, but just know that things are going to change, right? So how does it affect me? Another quote I wanted to pass along to you. You kind of decide how this is going to affect you. Brian Eisenhower said this: agent commissions will not go down, but the number of agents will. I actually think both are going to go down. And I hate to say that because I don't want to take a pay cut. But if I had to put my money on it, I would say there's going to be increased pressure on commissions as a result of this. And I think that's going to be directly because the American public has been told we don't have to pay agents anymore. That's the message. And we're going to have to deal with that over and over and over. Ladies first.
Well, I was just gonna say, because that is the message that media has sold to the American public, as listing agents, we are going to have to be on target when we talk to our sellers to not muddy the waters any more than they already are. Let's clear it up. EXP, we're good at doing that. We're trained how to do that. We're being trained how to do that. So that's how I feel.
Yep. I think on the listing side, we can hold strong. And I feel like even on seller offers of compensation should be good. I'm going to be advising my sellers to offer buyer broker compensation. I am, right? Right. And yeah, and clearly we kind of all feel that way. If that's the message being sent, I do think sellers who are offering compensation or concessions for compensation are going to do much better than those who don't. I'll give you an example of that. I took a listing 2 months ago, and the seller insisted on no offer of compensation to the buyer's broker. I said, okay. And I put it in private agent remarks because I didn't want a reputation on this deal. Seller has insisted that he is not offering a buyer broker compensation. I didn't want anybody to be blindsided either because I've been a victim of that. Boy, we didn't get many showings. We did not get many, but we were asking 412, which was way over market. And would you believe he got a 412 offer from somebody who already lived in the neighborhood and wanted that particular home on that location, that floor plan? But the agent did not read the no offer of compensation. And when I clarified that to her, they withdrew the offer at 412. They withdrew the offer because the buyer would have been on the hook for the compensation. He said, no, I can't come up. I'm not going to pay full price. And then another 3%. Do you know that seller has now had to lower his price to $399, and he's offering 2% to a buyer broker compensation? Think of the difference between $399 minus 2 versus the $412.
Probably be the
He will go down. Well, he would have been better off offering 3 at 412 than 2 at 399. And the market has deteriorated. The same model is down on the corner, came on the market at 399. I'm sorry, at 375. They're now down to 365. He's right now $35,000 over his competition on the same street. So he wouldn't listen to advice, but I'm saying if we properly advise them, most of our sellers will get it. Most of them, and that will help everybody. So let me just run through something quickly. I know I've kept you hour and 15 minutes. I knew this one would go a little bit long. I'm going to repeat some stuff I had shared earlier about communicating this information to buyers and sellers, and then we'll wrap it up. I would encourage you to empathize with your buyers and sellers. Don't antagonize them. In other words, it's hard enough for us to learn this stuff. We can't expect our buyers and sellers to understand the NAR settlement. They don't. All they know is what they heard on CNN, and so they don't think they have to pay anymore. So when they say things like that, a general response is, that's a great question. You know what? I wondered that myself. Empathize with them. Put yourself in their shoes. Now tell me what you've heard. Tell me where this is coming from. So really get into their perspective. And then a second general principle: stats tell, but stories sell. So we don't have all our new stories yet. We're going to get them pretty quickly, starting the 17th. I have a story. I just told you, right? So I do have a story. And you can adopt that for your own. So well, my broker had an experience just like that. We need to start saying, well, you know what? I understand where you're coming from. I had another client who felt exactly the same way. Let me share with you how their situation turned out. So rather than kind of bombarding people with numbers and stats and, 95% of FSBOs end up listing with a realtor, that kind of stuff, try to tell human stories, not just numbers. Okay, now specifically, how to talk to sellers. They could be asking you, why should I offer to pay the buyer's agent? I've been told I don't have to, right? The buyer's agent's going to be paid by the buyer. And that would be high level if they even know that. And so I've given you several responses here. First, you don't have to. We're being very empathetic, right? And up front, you don't have to offer buyer broker compensation. We can require that the buyer seek compensation directly from their agent. But there may be good reasons to consider offering buyer agent compensation, or at least letting the market know that you're willing to have a conversation about it. The primary reason for doing so is to enable you to maximize your net profits from the sale of your home, right? The net. That's the most important thing. It's not what we ask for. It's not what they pay. It's the difference between the two. It's the net that you walk away with. Maximize the net profits from the sale of your home. And the primary way we do that is by making your home visible, that's a key word, and attractive to the maximum number of both buyers and buyer agents. Visible because a lot of buyers are going to tell their agents, don't show me any homes that aren't offering you compensation because I don't want to have to add that to my cost. So you're going to be invisible to a huge part of the market if we don't offer compensation. Well, that's what I just said. Many buyers are instructing their agents to not even show them homes when compensation or concessions are not offered. So in many cases, the best buyers won't even see your home. And even if they do tour your home, if the competing homes are offering compensation or concessions, your home will be much less attractive to the buyers because their cost of purchase just went up. So it'll be less visible and less attractive to the people that we're hoping to sell to. But isn't it likely, the seller may say, that a lot of buyers are going to call you, the listing agent, directly, and that way we won't have to pay a buyer's agent, right? They won't have one. Yes, as your listing agent, I will be aggressively marketing your property, and I expect to generate direct buyer offers, right? I wouldn't be applying for this job if I didn't believe that. However, all my marketing efforts, as great as they are, cannot generate nearly enough buyer leads as the other 45,000 Houston area real estate agents working together. If we want to incentivize them to show your home, we've got to offer compensation or at least concessions to cover the cost of buyer representation.
So do you see, agents having to take, like you said, cut buyer agents especially, you know, so that they only get 2% and they don't have to buy for that additional one?
I think the most pressure is going to be on buyer agent commissions, yes, because these buyers are now required to sign a contract with compensation prior to showing. So I think there's going to be a big squeeze happen, yes. Yeah, and that's why I was on Monday teaching buyer conversation guide. We've got to be able to defend our value, present our value, and get what we think we're worth. Now, talking to buyers, let's flip the script. Why do I need to pay an agent? I'll just go straight to the listing agent. And we just answered that question from the seller's perspective. Now we're talking to a potential buyer who doesn't think they need us. Great question. However, there are still multiple ways for a buyer's agent to be compensated, and directly paying a buyer's agent is only one of those options. For example, and we can point to this language in the buyer rep agreement, a direct offer of compensation by the seller through the listing broker, or a direct offer of concessions by the seller to cover the cost of buyer agent compensation. Or we can negotiate to obtain an offer of compensation or concessions from the seller. In other words, if they don't offer it up front, we can ask for it. 4, we can offer a higher sale price to the seller to cover their costs for compensation or concessions. That may not be an attractive option to the buyer, but it's one of the options. We can offer a lower sale price to the seller to cover your costs of compensation. In other words, if you end up having to compensate me directly and my compensation is $10,000, I'm going to negotiate $10,000 off the price for you so that your net is the same. And then this morning, I added this note, which I think is going to be very powerful. And you need to make a note of this one. Many listing agents, including me, when I'm on the other side, when I'm representing the seller, we charge the seller more money when we're dealing with an unrepresented buyer. And we showed how you do that on the actual listing agreement. So, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if you don't agree that I'm going to be compensated, well, guess what? The listing agent's going to be compensated more, and you're not going to have any representation. That's not a good deal for you, right? An agent is going to be paid for your part of this transaction. It's either going to be somebody representing you or a listing agent who's making more money because you don't have an agent, and they are obligated legally to represent only the best interests of the seller. So I think this is going to be very helpful language to us in moving forward. But before we explore those options in more detail, talking to the buyer, let me share with you why you might find representation to be in your best interest and how it can even lower the cost of your home purchase. And this is where you go into your buyer value proposition. Now, to wrap up, let me just share with you 2 little hacks for navigating the shift. These are things that I just want you to be keenly aware of. As an EXP agent, when you go into SkySlope forms, make sure you select all libraries. And that way it'll pull forms from TREC, TXR, EXP National, and EXP Texas. You'll have access to everything, all libraries. Just if you were going into zip form, same thing, choose all. And then finally, when presenting offers to a seller, always use a net sheet so they can see exactly what their walkaway money is. And in a multiple offer situation, you need a spreadsheet that factors in all the various components. Seller concessions for closing costs, buyer's compensation, buyer broker compensation, any non-realty items they're asking for, all of those things so they can finally get down to the bottom and see what their walk away is. Okay?
So now I'm not just offering my, 1-4, I'm also sending to the seller a net sheet saying, this is how this offer will net to you.
Yeah, so if we only have a single offer, we're giving them a net sheet, this is your walkaway money on this offer. If we have multiple offers, it's even more important sorting through all the varying components because we've just introduced another element of chaos into the transaction, which is the buyer broker compensation.
Okay, gotcha. So you're saying you're the listing agent.
Yes.
Make sure you, yeah, and that's something we need to do, is to net out all offers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to say this is a little bit harder than it even sounds. Has anybody do net sheets regularly? Would you agree they're a little complicated? Particularly if you factor in information on the seller's current mortgage, what they're paying, what the closing date is, your prorating. HAR has a net sheet spreadsheet. If you look at that, you're going to think, I should have just been an engineer, right? Because I would do less math as an engineer than I'm going to do in completing this net sheet. It's a little overwhelming. I am looking for, I'm posing this as a plea, if anybody has a good net sheet calculator, I would love to get a copy that you would allow me to share. And if you have one that easily compares multiple offers, I would really like to get my hands on that.
This is where title companies need to step forward and earn their keep.
Yep.
The difference between the hard net sheet and the title company net sheet, I find the title company net sheet is sometimes more accurate.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've been blindsided by the property tax differential on the hard one.
Yes.
Particularly if you've got somebody in a home with over 65, their taxes, and they're paying.
Yes.
They're paying 1980 taxes.
Yes.
And then they get exposed to paying half of the real current market value taxes even for this year, and they're wanting to throttle me. But the net sheet, the hard net sheet doesn't catch that.
Right.
I think the title companies on that one, there's still an exposure there, but I would look at something like this.
Yeah.
I would go to a title company and it takes time to say, well, I need a quick net sheet on this one.
That's good. Even if it's multiple offers, you could say the same thing. I've got 3 offers here. Would you run me a net sheet on each one? And that's probably smarter than us doing it because we don't do this every day and we could miss things.
I do it in Excel and it looks real pretty, but it's my Excel is not accurate when it comes to closing date and proration of taxes and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to do that, right? I'm netting out the big boxes.
Yeah, and there are variations in title company fees. The title policy fee is fixed by law, but there are other fees that vary title company to title company. We can't be an expert on all those. So I like your idea, Kevin. Let's go to the title company named in the contract and see if they can give us a net sheet. And if we have 3 different offers, 3 different title companies, we'll ask a net sheet from each one. Okay?
Well, my swag allows, I want the fridge and the chandelier.
Yeah.
And so you can put in seller, you can assign a value to intangibles.
Yep. Or just list them separately.
I could find a way to do that and tell the title company, by the way.
Yeah.
This one is offers for X, but they want the first one as well. So
Yep. Take them. All right. That's what I wanted to share with you today. Anything that is clear as mud that you'd like a little additional input on?
Can we go back to the buyers, the brokers, buyer compensation?
Buyer broker compensation.
Maybe. So like if nobody wants to give the buyer compensation, and you said the broker can do that?
So a buyer's broker can be compensated by the buyer, by the seller, or by the listing broker. Yes. And all three of those together cannot exceed the stated compensation in the rep agreement. Okay, and they will look first. There's a priority. It goes to seller. You take what they're offering. You take what the listing broker is offering. What's left is what the buyer pays. Well, when you get an offer, let's look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Using SkySlate, even on all libraries, I struggle sometimes on finding forms. Where is this form? And it seems like, is there a better way or a best practice to go in and have all the forms you need? I'm trying
Templates.
to look for stuff, but
Yeah, you can. Well, templates is the answer to that. They give you basic templates, and then you can customize them. But that's so. And even if you're doing a document search, it's less is more. So if it's an exclusive right to sell property, blah blah blah, just search on the word exclusive. Search on one unique word in that title, and
So you're talking about when you already open a file.
yes.
You already open your file on SkyScope. That's where you use all libraries. I don't know, has EXP uploaded all their documents?
Yes. Well, they have. Well, I believe their Texas documents are there. Yes.
I've always used working documents.
Yes.
On the other side of SkyScope.
So working documents is a little hack. It's a shortcut where EXP Texas throws in documents that we specifically need for us.
Yeah.
I suspect all these new forms will be in there, but I haven't had occasion to check.
I checked it a few.
so that would be going forms, working docs.
Yeah. So when I'm creating a new file, I think we go to SkySlope Forms and you create there.
Create there, and that's where the all library.
Yes, that's exactly where it is. Yes.
But then when you're on the other side of SkyScope, which is the transaction side of SkyScope, you have working documents.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have, yeah.
Okay. Whew.
Sorry.
Well, y'all wore me out. I don't know about y'all. But okay. As we get into it, remember, there's going to be a messy middle. We may think we know 80% of it now. It may be less when we're actually doing it. So let's stay in touch with each other. Keep coming to class. Call me if I can help. Reach out to our managing brokers. I will tell you, I did that this morning. I've been watching tons of video, reading lots of documents. I read the entire NAR settlement, 109 or 10 pages. But I had a couple clarifying questions this morning. I called our managing brokers, and I got one on the phone. His name was Roddy. Never talked to him before. That guy knew what was going on. And when I posed my questions to him, he knew exactly the right answer. So they're sharp, and they answer the phone. So when I went into EXP World, the first time I talked to a broker, exp.world, and it worked just like the old app, but I got right in and got an answer. So good people. All right. Appreciate y'all being here. If you're thirsty, remember there is a fridge under the second counter with sodas and waters, and don't leave thirsty. You're most welcome.
Thank you, great class.
My pleasure. You go tell the Adam Olson team what a great class we had.
Did you have people online watching it?
We had a good number online, but the Adam Olson team, I didn't share the link with them because they wanted a live class. So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Are you going to share those slides with us at some point?
I will. I'll send them all back out.